Visiting this morning with Jayne Fonash, one of Potomac and Chesapeake's fairly recent past presidents. And I wanted to have her tell us just a little bit about how she first became involved in this organization, what appealed to her about it, and led her on a path of many different involvements with PCACAC over the years. Jayne, welcome.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Dal. I came to PCACAC for the first time in the late 90s. I am one of those folks who had another related career. I was in public and private mental health practice and went to school at a high school in the mid-90s. And a good friend of mine and a colleague, Debbie Tyndale, who's a past secretary of PCACAC, was one of my colleagues in Loudon, and for a year or two she had been saying, "Janie, you've got to come to PCACAC with me. These are your people. You need to be part of this. This will become part of your life." And so I went with her to Asheville to the joint PCACAC conference in 1999, I think, and never looked back. The first person that I met when I got there was Barry Bradbury, who's actually still at Elon with SACAC. And the first person he introduced me to at the conference was Jack Blackburn.
Wonderful. What a way to get started.
A wonderful
That's
way
fantastic.
to get started.
This was at a time when there was a huge amount of population growth and growth in the school system in Loudon County where you worked. And over time, that has just continued. Some of the challenges that you see in the present day rising out of a school system that's grown very rapidly, challenges in terms of funding of public higher education, and how counselors stay on top of their game, so to speak, in terms of professional development in the face of some of these other pressures in their lives. Would you talk about that a little bit?
When I went to work in Loudon, it was still very much a county with an east end that was suburban and a west end that was probably still 2/3 of the county farmland, horse country, very, very rural, people who had lived there for generations. And there were 15,000 students in the school district. There were 4 high schools. Between Sterling, Virginia and Leesburg, there was one blinking light, and that was it. And in 1997, we opened high school number 5, and this coming fall, in 2014, we will open high school number 14.
Wow.
So in those years, we've added 10 high schools, 10 middle schools. I've lost track of how many elementary schools to feed all those middle and high schools, and we've grown from 15,000 to over 77,000 students. We've had the good fortune of having the same superintendent through that entire period, and he's actually getting ready to retire this year, but he and the senior leadership have done an amazing job of helping us to grow and to support the infrastructure and to support professional development across the board for educators. But we've been fortunate to have several leaders in the counseling program who've been PCACAC members and who have supported that growth also. Ann Lewis was our guidance supervisor for a number of years, and she had been part of PCACAC in her previous positions in Virginia and led us through some of those changes. So as we grew, we were fortunate to have someone who was advocating for and protecting our budget, encouraging professional development, encouraging collaborations among all the counselors at the various schools. There has always been a very strong cohort of counselors and directors at each level where we have a group much like PCACAC where we share with each other what goes well, what we can do to improve things, problem solve, glitches along the way. So we experienced many years of great support for professional development. One of the times we were in Northern Virginia, and actually the first time I was on a conference committee, was in Tyson's Corner, and I think it was 2004 or 2005. Dave Krause was president-elect, and I was the local counselor's co-chair. And so there's this dubious distinction of the fact that we had one of the largest conference attendance numbers that we'd ever had. I think there were 445 people at that conference. The problem was that nobody had budgeted for that many local conferences, and I think there was some issue about the cost at the hotel, because it's a wonderful problem to have. So many local counselors came that day, and that was because folks like Ann Lewis from Fairfax and Judy Hingle and her colleagues in Fairfax supported all that professional development. And the spirit is still there, but like every other county, we have budget challenges and tax rate challenges. So our professional development funding has shrunk, and with so many more demands on public school counselors' time, getting out of the building has become more of a challenge. We've done some things locally in Loudon. We actually have a college counseling course that all new counselors are required to take when they come to Loudon. It happened, there's a monthly class over a 2-year period. We've been doing it for 6 years now. And it's based on the NACAC Principles of College Admissions book. And so we found a way for every counselor in the district to have some exposure to all of the important material that's in there, and all of the directors in the county take a role in teaching those classes. But you need to get outside your building, you need to get outside your district and speak to other people, and that's what's becoming more and more of a challenge. So one of our responsibilities in PCACAC now is to figure out ways to go to those counselors, and it's exciting to hear some of what our professional development committee members are doing, trying to package together events like an August workshop, an August work day for counseling departments for entire school districts. And that way we can take this knowledge, this experience, this great professional development to the public school counselors, and hopefully engage them in this important conversation about our profession. They may not always be able to come to us as much as they have, but we're going to them, and I look forward to continuing that and being part of that, so that we can continue to engage them in the conversations that we need to have.
Right, right. Looking back over the, 17, 18 years or so now that you've been involved with the association, you've already mentioned Jack Blackburn. Are there any other particular mentors in the organization that immediately come to mind in terms of what they have contributed to your experience in professional development?
You want to be here all day.
You're only allowed 2.
All right, so I'm going to think for a second. One of the things that is so special and so important about this organization is that it is so easy to reach out to people and hope for their support, try to glean from their expertise. And there are 2 people who come to mind. I worked in Loudon for a number of years at 2 comprehensive high schools, and 9 years ago I was fortunate to become part of our Science Academy. It was opened in the fall of 2005. It's an inquiry, Socratic, integrated math and science program that is just exciting to be part of. But it's, for those of us who are in Virginia, everyone said, oh, Loudon is going to have a Thomas Jefferson High School. And certainly that was part of the goal for us to be able to have a local alternative for our students. And I already knew Shirley Bloomquist from PCACAC. Shirley was the guidance director at TJ for many years, and I have a firm belief that when you're about to embark on a new undertaking, you should speak with other people who've gone down that path and learn from their steps along the way. And so I called Shirley, asked if we could chat. She invited me to her home. We sat for an afternoon on her porch, just talking about the the ups and downs that she had experienced at TJ, and just passed along some of the wisdom of her experience with those kids, those academic disciplines, and that kind of a school. And
I think the back porch conversation example is just so typical of this organization and not very widespread in other professional areas that I can think of. Fantastic. That's a great example. Thank you so much for sharing that and your insights into some of the pressures that people in the profession, especially on the secondary school side, are facing today. We appreciate your spending some time with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.